My name is Emmanuel Dei-Tumi, President of Human Capital International, a company that is passionate about the potential of Africa. For the last 3 decades, we have conducted trainings in the areas of leadership and entrepreneurship development because we believe that Africa is the hope of the future. If we're a leader, an entrepreneur, and a young leader on the continent that believes that Africa is the hope of the future, let's make this our mission. Gently like this video, subscribe, and please share all videos that come on this channel. Let's grow Africa's future together because we believe Africa indeed is the hope of the future. So the question is, having known the habits now, how do we develop our leadership skills? So I don't just become a leader because you see, people think that leadership is when you expose yourself to duties and what have you. No, leadership is intrinsic. Yes, if I know how habits are formed, and I know that habits are environmentally determined, and that environmental is either intrinsic or extrinsic, how then do I set my personal leadership priorities to accelerate my growth, both in 2023 and beyond? Why am I using beyond? Because your identity is not static. Who I am here is the same I am in Ghana, the same I'll be in London, they say everywhere I go, that's who I am. You carry your own environment with you. Having learned what we have learned, guys, before you start forming your personal leadership, it's always important to scan the environment. We need to scan the environment, but for our purpose, I want to draw our attention to something that this woman said in 2010. This is the president or the managing director of IMF, and I think those who came last month, I made this statement. He said, if I have to identify a theme at the outset of the new decade, it will be increasing uncertainty. Guys, we are living in a time that is very, very unpredictable. If there's any era in the, I'm only 59, so I've spent only 55 decades on this planet Earth. But what I've seen the last 5 years, it's so scary that if you are going to develop your personal leadership competencies and you don't scan the environment, even company, how many of you know that Silicon Valley Bank has collapsed? One of the richest banks in the world, overnight, it's gone, never to be resurrected again. And many banks are in the line. Things are happening. So let's not pretend to walk as if we are walking on the cow dung. How do you call it? Cow dung, eh? You know, when you look at it, it's like it's hard. But when you step in it, you get a point now? So that's how many people are behaving. A lot of us, we are behaving like the ostrich. We pretend everything is okay, but they are not. So this woman said, the next 10 years, at least limitedly, is going to be very, very uncertain. And with nobody. So let's begin to ask the question which normally comes up: are leaders born or made? What are your thoughts? For a leader, being a human being, you have to be born. What does that mean? It means everybody has the potential. Everybody say potential. Everybody has the potential for leadership. The word potential simply means seed. Everybody, including the 6-month-old baby, has the potential for leadership. That means anybody in this room can become a leader. You can become an MP. One of the things that grieves my heart today, based on some experience I've had, is that we need to be very, very conscious about the training we are giving our young people from primary school all the way to secondary school. The moment they finish secondary school and they enter university, we are done. The future is determined already. Are you aware from university the person can become a president, an MP? So the character, the habit they take from university is what is going to load over 40 million people. That's how dangerous it is. A fool who becomes an MP becomes a dignified fool. Because you don't move from foolishness, carry the same foolishness to parliament, and then suddenly becomes honorable. It's a dignified fool. And that's the danger.
Useful fool.
Are you with me? Each one of us has the potential to become a leader. That means leaders indeed are born. But to become an effective leader, you have to be made. Are we together? Now, right now, if I came here and I gave you an egg, you know egg, what will you do with it? 3 things. You can boil it and eat it. You can fry it and eat it. Or you can give it to another mother hen to incubate it. So, depending on your, again, I'm going back to habit. Depending on your worldview, identity, depending on your identity, that would now determine the outcome you are going to get. Hello? Yes. If your identity says, I see the egg with potential, I will not cook it, I will not fry it, what would I do? I'll give it to mother hen. That seed will now become the genesis of a whole flock of what? Chicken. But the decision to be able to decide not to cook, not to fry, but to give it to mother hen is based on the persona, my worldview, my perspective, and how I interpret the value of what I have in my hands. So guys, what I'm saying to you is that all of us can determine whether we have a chicken or a turkey based on who we are. This is very key. The problem of Africa is not resources. It is the issue of whether we are developing our continent from the identity standpoint or from the outcome standpoint. And based on what we have learned today from the habit perspective, that matters a lot, the way what we do with the seed, the potential that we have. Whether we become effective leaders or we become short-term thinking leaders, all about our perspective. So let's begin to look at a few things here. What is personal leadership? I was doing the session somewhere and I asked about what is personal leadership. Personal leadership is personal. Now, one of the definitions that I have learned, a statement that was made by the founder of and CEO of Visa, the Visa that you guys have been using, he said, if you want to lead others, invest 40% of your time leading yourself. Now, what does this tell you? In other words, before you talk about outcome, what's my Sam? Identity. This is key. This is extremely important. Why? When you look at personal leadership, he said, personal leadership, this is by Paul Myers. He said, personal leadership is the self-confident ability to crystallize your thinking so that you are able to establish an exact direction for your own life, to commit yourself to moving in that direction, and then to take determined action to acquire, accomplish, or become whatever that goal demands. Now compare this definition to the identity-driven model of habit development, and you see the synchronization. This is personal leadership. In other words, you cannot lead people when you yourself, you are lost. When you are lost in personal direction, in the personal identity, you have no basis going to lead other people. That's why I said, if you have a fool who is a fool and everybody knows he's a fool, and he suddenly ends up in parliament, he's not honorable, he's a dignified fool. Because public leadership is developed out of personal leadership. Guys, And so therefore, if we want to be able to lead others, it's important that we have self-confident ability to crystallize our thinking so that you cannot just be thinking about anything anyhow. We talked about systems, boundaries. You get a point? So if you cannot create systems around your thinking, if anything can just enter your mind, you cannot be focused. So we need to crystallize your thinking so that you are able to establish an exact direction. Exactness is key. How many of us are willing to do what it takes to attain that level? So guys, this is what we are saying here now. If we are going to become what we want to become by the end of December, the habits we are forming on a daily basis, repetitively, is what is going to shape whether we'll be able to attain our goals or not. Now, if you want to develop personal leadership, you need to find out what is the DNA of leadership. And you come to realize that for you to become a leader, first of all, you must be a certain kind of person to be a leader. So the issue is being a certain that kind of person. That is why I said, if you have a fool who hasn't taken the time to develop what it takes to become honorable, and he certainly uses money, gets people to vote for him without knowing that he is not going through the process to become honorable, and he ends up in parliament, you only have a dignified fool, not an honorable member of parliament. Because for you to become a leader, you first have to be a certain kind of person. So it talks about what kind of habits do I need to form to let me, and that is why the identity is key. What kind of person do I want? So I want to become an honorable person, then I must go through the process to attain that outcome. But identifying that person is key before I get there. So how can you then become that kind of person who leads effectively? And that's what I want us to look at. So let's go into the formula. The DNA of leadership, therefore, is number one, being plus capacity plus doing. Leadership can only be attained when we look at the formula, number one, being, capacity development, and then putting that into implementation. That is what constitutes the DNA of leadership. So let's now take them one by one and look at the constituent. What make up the being? Let's take them one by one, because we want to become good leaders. When we say, I want to become a leader, and I focus on the DNA, and the DNA has three constructs: being, capacity, and doing. Under the being, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about your belief system, your value systems, your principles, and your behavior, qualitative behavior, and your attitude. This is what constitutes being that certain kind of person. Without these attributes, and you jump to become something else, you have failed the DNA test. That's what I'm saying. So you end up in a certain position, they give you a title, managing director, general manager. The question is, do you have the DNA of that managing directorship? Otherwise, you become a title holder, a position occupant, not a leader. Okay? So let's look at the capacity. We talk about three things: being, variable, and doing. Under capacity, we are talking about technical competence, reasoning competence, and resilience competence. These three competencies constitute your capacity as a leader. So you say you are an accountant. Do you have the technical competence? Because if you have the technical competence, then you qualify in that arena. You are not an accountant, yet you say you are a chartered accountant. When they bring balance sheet and they say interpret it, you are found wanting. That means you lack the technical competence in that area. And then your reasoning competence. How are you able to look at systems, variables, issues, and then reason out and make what we call informed decision that will both impact the present and the future positively? All come under reasoning. The last time we met, we talked about the thinking of people. Some think linearly, and then others think systemically. Now, all of that comes under your reasoning competencies. Okay? Then your resilience. Are you able to look at the face of challenges and see a silver lining out of the challenge as a leader? Because if you're a leader and challenges come and you throw in the towel, what happens to the followers? Scatter. Okay? But can you face challenges when everybody is saying it is so bleak and you can see a little spot of light and say, let's go, it can be done? That is part of capacity. Okay? Then we talk about doing. What is doing? Doing is based on your decisions, your actions, and your modeling. The quality of the decisions you make, the quality of your actions, and how you exemplify what you have said or thought through or agreed upon is what constitutes the DNA of leadership. So think about them. Think about them. And now, when we say that if you want to develop a new habit, don't focus on the outcome, don't focus on the material things, don't focus on what you can touch, the tangibles, but rather start from the standpoint of identity development. That is the essence of the point that we are making here. That is what makes you a leader. Thank you so much for investing your treasure time. This mission is for generations and generations for the good of Africa. Watch out for our next video. Africa needs you.